All righty. Well, it took a long time, many months, too many miserable games. But with the Hawks defeat, pretty sound defeat, by the way, 131-107 of the Cleveland Cavaliers, the New York Knicks are officially eliminated from postseason contention. Yes, I see you, Jaden Evans. Stop John, I'm going to be sad. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is it a sad day? I guess kind of. Um, I'll say a few words about the season and my thoughts on it, but I at least right now am feeling a little I don't know, kind of feeling actually oddly relieved. That may not make a lot of sense, but this season has been this season has been trying for I think a lot of fans. I think whether you were in the hey, we're going to win 50 games group, and there were more of those folks out there than probably would care to admit right now. I think actually I remember I put a Twitter poll out before the season started with I think my four choices were Knicks will win over 50 games, Knicks will win like between 47 and 49 or like 46 and 49 and then like maybe 42 to 45 and then like there'll be an under 500 team. And I think close to half the people thought that this was a 50-win team. Now, granted, that's Knicks Twitter, and it's not representative of like all fans, but there was a lot of hope for this team, and I think there was reasonable hope. There was reason to believe that there was a stability here provided by everything that we came to appreciate and enjoy last season, and you know there was no they might like not win as many games, but they weren't going to get materially worse. And if they got a little bit worse in a few areas, they would make up for it by getting better in other areas because how could they possibly get worse going from, Elfrid Payton and Reggie Bullock to Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier on offense, or so we thought. So whether you were in like the 50-win group or in like they're winning the mid 40s and they'll be a playoff team, or you were a little bit more down on them and you're like, you know what, I think they're going to be around 500, a little bit better than 500, but I think it's going to be a step forward for the organization. Whatever it was, I don't think any Knick fan went into this season thinking it was going to be this stressful and trying and just honestly not very fun. And like I say that with a little bit of trepidation because I'm and this will kind of feed into my overall impression of the year, which is basically that I don't know what it's going to be yet, and we can't know what it is yet because we don't have enough information. I think there's there's a possibility we're going to look on this season fondly years from now, and I think there's a possibility we're going to look back on the season not fondly. But there is definitely the potential for us to look back on the season fondly because there is real young talent here. And like, we talk about the young talent after every game. We talk about it on the podcasts, and like me and Benji just did like a whole thing on all their young players in the pod this week. That's all been good and fun, and it's been cool to see RJ Barrett turn into a real piece, and it's been great to see Emmanuel quickly, pick up where he left off last season and arguably advance even more, and on and on down the line. And you could be encouraged about Obi Toppin, you could be encouraged about Mitchell Robinson, you could be encouraged about Quentin Grimes, about Deuce McBride, about Jericho Sims. You'd be excited, about Cam Reddish when he finally gets on the floor and has a chance to do some things. I mean, I just reeled off 8 players. Are all of them going to be, core rotation pieces for this franchise going forward? Of course not. But, there's been a lot of years where we haven't been able to look at the roster and find like 1 or 2 young rotation pieces to get excited about. And, I just named off 8 guys. And I don't know if it's going to be 3, 4, 5, like whatever it's going to be, it's better than it's been here in a while. And so that's been cool and fun. And all of those guys have given us moments this year and things to be excited about. But there's no like, even if that turns out good, that part of it of the equation, this season people are going to look back on it and remember it like just just not fun. And like you could think back, you could go all the way back. I mean, literally, even though opening night was one of the most fun games I feel like I've ever been a part of, even that night, like up whatever, what were they up 10? Were they up 11, 12, something like that? 10, 11, 12 with 3 minutes to go. And it's like, all right, we're back, baby. Here we go. And then it's like they whittle away the lead and like piss it away in a few minutes with just some of the most careless shit. And it's like, this isn't what we expected. Okay, we'll chalk it up to the first game. And then, 4 nights later, they lose to a Magic team that was expected to be the worst team in basketball. And they are one of the worst teams in basketball. And then, on and on we went, where, I mean, it's just like, if you think about it for a second, it took until this week to have a winning streak of over 3 games, which means this team never got any real momentum. Like anytime, like even in like those couple of like 2 and 3 game winning streaks, there would be something materially worth complaining about. And like legit, I'm not throwing shade, like legitimately complain about it. And like I come on here and I'll defend the coach and the kid early in the season, like I was defending Randall, and like I always try to put a positive spin on it. But like people had genuine reasons to be upset, even during some wins, because we would just see signs of things that were really troubling. And God knows how many games there were where just the entire starting unit looked like a complete disaster. All that's like that's when I think back to this year, and like I'm not gonna pat myself on the back for this, because if I really foresaw it going this way, I would have been a little bit bolder with a prediction to this end. But like I said in one of the last podcasts before the season, I'm like, I just have 2013-14 stuck in the back of my mind. And it's funny, I was actually looking up. I had completely forgotten this, and I looked it up before. The Knicks were officially eliminated during that season. There was it was a week to go. Actually, no, it was like 5 days to go in the season, and they were eliminated when the Hawks won a game. The Hawks made it, they didn't, and sure enough, here we are back 8 years later, and once again, the Knicks are eliminated because the Hawks won a game. Not 5 days left in the regular season, 10 days instead left in the regular season, but kind of similar, too little, too late, as that team making a run. I think the difference between the teams is that team early on, at least, you felt like they were snake bitten. I think they got off to something like a 2-9 start, or 3-10, some terrible start, and then like they would just shoot themselves in the foot here, shoot themselves in the foot there, and then they finally started to put it together, and like you saw the talent, and like they were a crazy good net rating team for the last month and a half of that year. Um, this team, there was something off, fundamentally off, just like something in the water supply, something tainted everything about this season. And again, I you could even go back to those first couple weeks and you could see it then. Something was off. And like I haven't gotten to the super chat yet. I'm gonna get to the super chats in a minute. But like, you know, who you blame for this year, I really do think it comes down to one, your personality probably, but two, it's just like the things that you value and like what your sensibilities are as a sports fan. My big thing, if you think this is mostly on Tibbs, if you think this is mostly on Julius Randle, if you think this is mostly on Kemba Walker, if you think this is mostly on a poor roster, if you think this is mostly on the front office, whatever you think, you're not wrong. No one's wrong. I, I mean, I guess there are some people who are like, well, if you think it has anything to do with this person, then you're wrong. Like, whatever your opinion is, I think it's valid. I think it's valid because there is no one who can come out of this season unscathed. And like different parties will have their defenders. Like I always defend Tibbs. That's what I do. There are people out there nowadays defending Randall, which God bless those folks. Everybody should have a friend like the people that are defending Julius Randle on Twitter nowadays. And like Jeremy defends the front office, and he will continue to defend the front office. Like everybody is justified in having their defenders. Everybody is justified in having people who blame them. When it goes this sour, and that's really what this season was. It was so sour, and I say that about a team that is even right now they're like barely a point per 100 possessions, like negative in the negative. Like I think they're zero 0.9 points per 100 possessions in the negative. They have like the 18th or 19th best net rating in the NBA. That's obviously it's not where people wanted it. It's also not a disaster. Which is the crazy part is that, I mean, I don't know. People watching, you've been around for different periods of time. Some people have been around since the championship years, watching this right now, I'm sure, or listening to this tomorrow on podcast. Like we could remember a lot of bad years. This one feels unique to me because there were years where you went into it and you're just like, this is probably not going to work. It's a stretch to think that like Zach Randolph and Jamal Crawford are going to be able to compose, the two main pillars of a good basketball team. Or man, I'm not sure about that Eddie Curry fellow really keeping it together and holding the fort down as a pillar of the franchise. Or like, I'm not sure if Howard Isley and Shannon Anderson are the I don't know if they're the droids we're looking for here. Or how about that Tim Hardaway Jr. Man? I'm it's nice to have him back, but I don't know if he's gonna be worth that $18 million a year. I'm not so sure. Like we could think of all of those seasons where you had, if you were being realistic, you had real doubts. This season, again, even if you weren't super high on this team, there was just a sense that it wasn't going to be this. It wasn't going to be this. And that's based on everything from last year. It was based on Julius Randle, not only his play on the court, but I think what we all believed at the time was genuine, not only genuine leadership, but genuine embrace of the role of being a leader of the team and being like a pillar of the city of New York. It sounds crazy to say that now. He just got booed in pregame introductions, but like that was there. And like Thibodeau, like I don't need to talk about Thibodeau, but like the man won Coach of the Year. That everybody, even if you didn't like Tibbs, you at least had to tip your cap and be like, if he's on the sidelines, it can only get so bad. And when we thought about like Leon Rose and Worldwide West and this whole collective front office making decisions together, and it was like working, and they had their finger on the pulse and the whole thing. And then you had your key veterans, you had Taj coming back, and you like RJ Barrett, he's a worker. Like all of these kids are workers. Obi's a worker. Emmanuel Quickly's a worker. Like all of this stuff, Fournier, not everybody's cup of tea, but like the dude's a gamer. He's kind of tough, or some tough in his own way. And then of course the cherry on top was Kemba Walker, right? It's like even if he lost a step, like how could Kemba Walker coming back to New York go badly? So that's why like this season really for me does occupy a unique place, and in a lot of ways has maybe been I don't want to say my most disappointing season, but I don't know. It's weird to say. It's like because there have been worse seasons, obviously, and there have been seasons that had less exciting moments. God knows, a lot less exciting moments. And yet, I think about the season, I'm like, man, this is just the least fun I've had being a Knicks fan. And maybe that's because I'm like so immersed in it now, and like I come on and I do this and I talk about the team so much and the whole thing, and I'm like, I'm never not thinking about this team, which is like this year's team was not the team that you wanted to never not be thinking about. It's really not, I would not recommend it to anyone, trust me. All that being said, last thing I want to say before I get to the comments and the super chats, and I appreciate everybody in here watching and contributing so far. I do think that this is a fork in the road moment for the franchise. And I think there is a real chance that we look back on this year and be like, oh yeah, the 21-22 season, that was when we kind of had to take our medicine after, the Big 15 year, that great Big 15 year. Yeah, we had to kind of come to grips with a few things and make the adjustments that we needed to make. But boy, after we got through that shit, it was it's the Shawshank line, right? It's what is it, 500 feet or 500 yards of shit smelling foulness. You wouldn't, wish on anybody. Maybe we'll come out of it the other side. And I think we don't have to get into it right now, but I think there's going to be moves that they could make where that's a real, and I'm not saying they're going to be a 50-win team next year. I don't think that's realistic, but they could come out of this thing okay. And then, just like I was afraid to mention 2013-14 out loud before this season starts, I'm afraid to sit here and mention 2014-15 now, because for as rough as 2013-14 was, 14-15, for anybody who doesn't remember that was when it was just like, oh my God, this is not a basketball team anymore. This is a comedy troupe. And it just went completely off the hills. I don't think famous last words. I don't think that could be in the cards. Um, but nothing's ever guaranteed. It's seemingly with this franchise. So look, let's see what they do. I mean, there's no shortage of offseason questions. What do they do with Julius Randle? Does Mitchell Robinson stay? Are they able to extend RJ Barrett? What moves do they make? Like literally everything they do is going to have an impact on like a young player on the roster, because if they go out and they draft somebody, or they go out and they trade for somebody, and they go out and they sign someone, like there's going to be a unless they trade away a young player in the deal, which is possible, there's going to be a young player on the roster that plays the same position as whoever it is that they go and draft and trade for and sign. So like literally any position, we're going to be able to draw a conclusion about like, oh, does that mean that they really don't believe in Obi Toppin, huh? Or wow, I guess they don't think much of Emmanuel Quickly's prospects as a future, starting guard in the NBA, or even like a 6-man. Like whatever they do, every decision they make is going to have an impact. There is nobody on this roster where there is not a question about. The only player who's on the roster that there's no question about, I think, is RJ. And yet, ironically enough, I would argue that maybe other than Randall, the biggest question of the offseason is whether they can finally break the curse and finally sign a rookie to an extension. Because, despite what I wrote earlier this week, I do think that there is a chance that there's some, contention in the negotiations for RJ's next contract. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how all of this goes. We'll start talking about that pretty soon. We do have some games left. We'll keep doing the post games, keep reacting, the whole thing. Yeah, I think that's really all I wanted to say. And I guess the last thing is like, I do want to say that to the extent that I have gotten, admittedly, extremely frustrated throughout the year, and sometimes that frustration lets itself out on here. I anyone who was stuck with this team even a little bit this year, you deserve a badge of honor and you deserve a medal. And whatever your opinion is that you hold about, again, who is to blame, who's at fault, who's not at fault, this, that, and the other thing, it's valid. It's valid because you know what? You're a fan, and it's through the eye of the beholder. So, respect to every Knicks fan everywhere. We continue to stick it out with this team to our own detriment. And, we'll be back for more next season, I'm sure. Okay, let's see what we got going on in the good old super chat. I'll try to hit up some chats, regular chats as well. Andrew, I think you're watching along. If you see anything in the regular chat that feels worth pinning, feel free to do that. Sorry, my voice is going a little bit. First comment from Andrew Palladino. At work and looked down and saw emergency pod with a Tibbs thumbnail and thought hashtag fire Tibbs squad would be rejoicing tonight. LOL. Yeah. They're not, that's not going to happen tonight or tomorrow or before the end of the season. I think he's safe. Nothing would shock me though. Nothing would. The only thing that would like truly shock me this offseason is if they traded RJ Barrett. Literally, almost nothing else would shock me. I guess if Leon Rose was fired, that would shock me too. Trade RJ Barrett, fire Leon Rose. Anything else wouldn't shock me. Kevin Danishevsky, what's going on, Kevin? Great to see you, my man. Thanks for sticking around the whole season on these things, half times, DMs, and apologies to anyone who has an outstanding DM to me on Twitter. I've it's been a busy last couple of weeks, but I'll get to everybody before the end of the year, I promise. Last night was the first night I was too frustrated to even listen to your post game. The Emmanuel Quickly decision was the straw that broke the camel's back. It's over. Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way. You know, like I said, actually, I didn't really say this, but I'll say it now. The only consistently good thing about this team the entire year was the young players. And that's why it's like the Kevin Garnett meme from Uncut Gems. Like, why would you show it to me if I can't have it? You know? And it's worse than that, even. It's like showing it and then being like, oh, okay, so you could I just want to make sure you could see what it could do. I want you to be very clear about it. And then I'm gonna give you back the shitty thing that I'm like refusing to not get out of your face. So yeah. Shamik Gayan, what's going on, Shamik? I know this season has been marred by the Randall and to a smaller extent Tibbs of it all. But as fans, I think we could be happy with the RJ and Emmanuel Quickly progression, along with Grimes and Sims flashes. I think that's it's a great summary of the season, and thank you for the contribution. I think everybody kind of is going to have their own order of like young players of preference, and that's kind of what's exciting. Like, I think there's a world where someone could be like, yeah, I think Cam Reddish is the second most exciting young player on this team, and you know what? I'd be like, okay, that's fair. Um, you could say Emmanuel Quickly, you could say Obi Toppin, um, you could say Mitchell Robinson. We kind of put off Mitch to the side because of the contract situation. Meanwhile, dude's still whatever he is, 23 years old. And he's still young, and there's a chance that they could get him on a decent deal moving forward, and he's going to be a part of, this organization's success moving forward. They have a lot of good young talent. Let's hope they know what they're doing with it. Forgotten NYC, what's going on, my man? At front office is to blame for me. Completely whiffed the off season. It's a fair stance, and like we're gonna look back on this year, and you're gonna look at the decisions they made, and we're gonna look at the Fournier contract, for instance, and like you're gonna look at what he's making, and you're gonna look at the numbers that he put up this year, and then you watch like a sampling of games and be like, yeah, I mean, okay, it's a couple million too many, but that dude's a good player. Like in theory, that's exactly what the Knicks needed. And then you go to look at Kemba and like, all right, 9 million a year, no risk, right? And there's a conversation to be had about like, was there a way to mitigate the risk that wasn't taken? And you could go down the line, but then see, to me, we're the biggest. Honestly, the biggest blame. They went and brought back Burks, and went and brought back Rose, and went and brought back Nerlens Noel, and obviously locked up Julius Randle. That's the biggest one. Why did they do all those things? For continuity. For continuity, and continuity is supposed to be the thing that prevents this. You know, And that's why this has been, in addition to maybe the most frustrating season and not the least fun season, it's also been the most confusing season because, like, I could sit here and I have my theories about why it all went to shit. And you sitting there watching or listening have your theories about why it all went to shit. The fact of the matter is, we really don't know for sure, you know? Um, but continuity is supposed to avoid this, and the opposite happened. So there you go. Barry Craver, what's going on, Barry? How are you? Good to hear from you. Thank you, KFS crew, for keeping this season interesting. Please focus on what is important. David Fizdale joined a new team and ruined them. Yeah, I mean, like if you are, I think most Knicks fans have probably gotten over any potential, to, down in the dumps feelings that they had a while ago. But if you are someone who is like, my team sucks, my organization sucks, nothing is good, like, go take a look around the league at some of the other situations. There's some pretty bad situations out there. I'm not saying the Lakers are a terrible situation. They still have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So, but like, yeah, it's hard to build a winning team. It's hard to do everything right. Very few organizations do it, and even the ones that do seem to do it all the time, like the Heat, they have moments where things look fucked up. And it could also change. It could change on a trifle. Boston Celtics look to be on the verge of like blow it up mode, and they've been just about the best team that the NBA has seen in years over the last 3 months. So you never know what's going to happen. Roger Fortune, what's going on, Roger? Started following this channel from last year, and I wish I knew about it sooner. Thank you, man. That means a lot to us. All we want to ever do, myself, Andrew, Jeremy, Benji, Chris, we want to put out content that people want to consume. And just kind of have a home for the fan community all around the world. So the fact that you like that means a lot to me and all of us. From the highs and lows since I thank you. Here's the hope for next year. We always have hope. Right? We're the Cubs. Wait till next year. Kevin Danishevsky with one more. The good news is I don't think we've ever had a young core this good, or at least since the 90s. It's been such a pleasure to watch recently, but redacted. Yeah, that topic has come up a lot this year. The Knicks, this is the best Knicks young core since. I honestly think you have to go back to Ewing and Mark Jackson. And then if you want to throw in, I'm trying to think. So, and then they traded for Oakley. I don't know if Oakley counted as like part of that young core. He was already in his mid-20s by the time they traded for him. But yeah, and then you got Rod Strickland, and like, it's been a while. It's been a while. This organization has done a really poor job of bringing along young talent over the years. So it's nice that they seem to have finally gotten that right. We got a comment here from Bricks Nation. Nets laughed my ass off. Lost all respect for actor Ethan Hawke, who was at the Nets game rooting for Brooklyn. I'm assuming I know why Andrew put this as a pin chat. So I shared it with our text. So Ethan Hawke, for anybody who doesn't know, lives like near me. I don't know exactly where he lives, but he lives somewhere in my neighborhood because I've seen him about 5 times since I moved here. And I happened to be walking on the sidewalk earlier today, and I saw Ethan Hawke. For all I know, maybe he was walking to the Barclays Center. It was a bit early. It was in like the early afternoon, but he was talking to a friend. He was not wearing a Nets jersey though. I guess he changed. Oh well, sucks for you, Ethan. Jason M. Jason, I just want to say thank you before I even read your comment. Thank you for always spicing up the halftime Zooms and always contributing on here and making your presence known. It's good to have diverse opinions. So even though we don't always agree, I appreciate what you bring to the table. Thanks for the content. Even though I hate your Tibbs stance, the most frustrating thing is we have no idea where this team is headed, and I have zero faith in Tibbs. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the other side of the coin for a lot of fans. Is a lot of fans are going to enter this offseason feeling like, I don't care what we do with the roster. I don't care who we draft. I don't care who we trade for. I just don't trust this coach. And like, I'm not gonna get on a soapbox about Tibbs right now. I'll just say again, I think it's if that's how you feel, that's fair. But I would have faith in the front office. Like every front office gets to fire a coach, and this front office is not above firing this coach. Obviously, they thought about doing it already, and they just decided not to. At some point they will pull that trigger if they feel like, man, we got something really good going here, and we think a different coach is going to be the difference. And I just hope, for the sake of everybody who shares your opinion, that Tibbs is not the guy and he's not the answer, that whoever they pick next after Tibbs is the answer, but we'll see when that comes. And also a lot of this is really about, they need to as many have said, you gotta take the sharp object away from Tibbs. You gotta prevent him from doing harm to himself. And they did a poor job of that. I'm not gonna say they did a poor job of that going into the season, but like I don't think the situation was managed well. And then once the trade deadline passed and nothing happened, you know, it's like, yeah, you could blame Tibbs, but blame the front office also. Matt, my man, Matt, what's going on? I'm looking forward to getting in touch in the off season. I've been thinking about some of the things that we've talked about. Tough season, but appreciate you all. Matt, I can't thank you enough for the contribution. I can't thank you enough for chiming in, and I can't thank you enough for the appreciation. Really kind of you, man. Thank you, seriously, and we'll talk soon for sure. Brian Benjamin, what's going on, Brian? Get the likes up. Sure, why not? The Knicks are eliminated. Why? What's not to like? All right, Jessica. Of course, Jessica had to chime in on tonight of all nights. I appreciate you, Jessica. Same thing. I've been saying you've been here from the beginning of the year. This season would have been much less bearable without you. There's a ton to look forward to in these young players, as long as the front office is smart enough to keep them. Let's just keep our fingers crossed for a wiser offseason from the front office than last time. Let's go, Knicks. Extremely well said. Extremely well said. And like, just to expand upon this point and something that I was talking about earlier, again, there are 8. Well, Bishop Robinson is not going to be a rookie contract player anymore, but there are and Jericho Sims is technically on a 2-way, although they'll convert that deal. But there are, if you include Sims, 7 rookie contract players who will still be on rookie contracts that are slated to be on the roster next year. In obviously RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, Quentin Grimes, Deuce McBride, Cam Reddish, Sims, and did I say Obi Toppin? I think I forgot Obi Toppin. That's a lot of guys. I would be, and then if you include Mitch, like I would be very surprised if they went into next season with the intention of having 8 of the top 10 rotation spots be occupied by the 8 names that I just read off. I'd personally be surprised. Does it mean it's not possible? Of course it's possible. It's absolutely possible. But and then by the way, they have a draft pick coming up. We haven't even talk about things we haven't even started to wrap our mind around yet. There's gonna have to be some consolidation. Like, we don't want to see any of these young players go. We don't want to think about a world where any of these players are like outside of the rotation looking in next season. And honestly, I think other than Deuce, who I think they might still be a little bit of a wait and see with Deuce. I think everybody else, if they're here, will be in the rotation. So like, if obviously RJ Quickly goes without saying, if Grimes is here, he'll be in the rotation. If Obi's here, he'll be in the rotation. If Cam is here, he'll be in the rotation. And then the 2 centers, Mitch and Jericho Sims. If they're here, I think they're going to be in the rotation. Maybe Sims is a chance he goes back to being a 3rd stringer, but I don't think so. I think they like Sims. I think they believe in Sims. So then it's a question of like, okay, well, what do you do to consolidate? Which of these guys do you ship out? I don't really want to see any of them shipped out, to be honest with you. I like these kids. I love the idea of a young core. I really love the idea of like maybe keeping 1 or 2 of the vets, that we have, and like adding 1 more piece somewhere, whether it's a Brunson or a Brogdon, or it doesn't even have to be a point guard. If you want to try to go out and like, there's not a whole lot of obvious names out there in terms of guys. Like, you want to make Anthony Simons a big offer in restricted free agency, or try to work a sign and trade or something. Like, there are guys out there that they could try to get. I think the only way that the organization could be dumb is if they just made a really short-sighted trade. And what does a short-sighted trade look like for this organization right now? I'm not sure if there's an obvious one on the table, which is like, something that teams of Knicks past would be tempted to do. I don't see I don't really see that trade out there. God knows, again, famous last words. We've seen them make some god awful trades in the past. I don't see it out there. I think the worst thing that they could do is do something like overpay for Miles Turner to then go ahead and sign him to a big extension. And I like Turner, and I kind of would like for them to kick the tires on him. I don't think we need to trade a young player to do it. I think you can get away with trading a draft pick and maybe one of the veterans. Um, so I think they'll be smart. How smart? We'll see. Um, Continuing along, Matt Smith, what's going on, Matt? Appreciate you chiming in. Very much appreciate the contribution. Thanks for the great season as always. I'm curious what you think the market trade value is for some of our guys we may look to move. Mitch, Evan, Julius, Nerlens, etc. Do you realistically see Cam ever having a role here? I mean, I'll answer the last part first. Yes. I think the front office is still I just saw Andrew's tweet hashtag before Moon Knight. It's fucking great. Shout out to Moon Knight. Good first episode, by the way. What was I gonna say? Yeah, the front office is still steering the ship. They traded for him. Yes, they almost tried to trade him a week later, but only for a certain return. I think they like Cam. I think Cam's interesting. I think Cam's earned himself a real look. I think I see him having a role here. I think the fact that he can play the 3 or the 4, I think that helps. As for the value of our guys, Mitch, I don't like. He's a free agent, and there's teams with money. What's his valuation? I think his valuation should be the Robert Williams contract, 4 years, $53 million. Might he go a little bit more than that? Yeah, he might, because it's tough to get a good young player in unrestricted free agency. That really doesn't happen in the NBA anymore. So maybe a team like the Pistons decides like, hey, fuck it. Yeah, here's 4 for 60, or here's 3 for 48. I don't know, something crazy. Maybe. I doubt it. Evan Fournier, I think, like, could they find a team willing to take on Evan Fournier's contract for a middling, expiring veteran contract and a second round pick? Yeah, I think so. Like, Derek White got traded for Josh Richardson and 2 firsts. I think 1 protected this summer. Or this season at the trade deadline. I'm not saying Evan Fournier is as good as Derek White. Obviously, Derek White, even though he hasn't shot the ball well, has been an incredibly instrumental piece to what Boston has done. But like, Derek White was on a big contract. He's signed for a lot more years at about, like, I think $15 or $16 million a year. Not nothing, a little bit less than Evan. Like, Derek White is a really gifted defensive player who's a really good cog. Fournier is a different type of player. He's more of a 6 man on a good team. But man, if that guy fucking gets going, as we've seen this season, like, he'll win you some games. And if he's coming off the bench, he won't lose you as many games because you could pull the plug a little earlier. So, like, I think Fournier has a little value. I don't know that I'd still consider it like a neutral contract. Still probably a level below neutral, but it's not far from neutral. And then the other two, I mean, Nerlens Noel is like, Nerlens Noel has ceased to be Nerlens Noel. He is now Nerlens Noel's expiring contract. And then Julius is like, I don't know. If you want to tell me that there are executives out there who think that Julius Randle has one of the 5 worst contracts in the NBA, I'd be like, okay, that checks out. If you want to tell me that there are executives out there who think that the Knicks could still get like a first round pick for Julius Randle, and like, first round pick and send over an expiring contract or something, or a couple expiring contracts for Julius, I believe that too. I tend to think his contract is less tradable than others do. I think they'll be able to move it. I think they'll be able to move it if they want to. But I do not think it has value. And I do think it is probably has to be considered one of the 10 to 15 worst contracts in the league at this point. I don't know how you watch the Knicks this year and think anything differently. James, what's going on? James, I haven't seen you in a while. James Stanzioni. What a year it has been. No matter what happened, we still have a bright future. Completely agree. I love you, John. Can't wait for the draft watch party. IQ is the GOAT. Love you too, James. It's good to hear from you. And yeah, draft watch party, man. It'll be fun. Lottery first. Lottery. We got to do a lottery thing. This is the year, right? This is the year. This is the year we move up. I'm convinced. Convinced. Um, Forgotten NYC. So how does the franchise bounce back next year? I think you could ask 10 different people and I think you could get 10 different answers. My personal answer, as will surprise absolutely no one who listens to me, and I'm sorry if you're tired of me saying this, but I cannot tell a lie. The franchise bounces back by trading Julius Randle and getting Julius Randle and his personality and his mood swings and his general shitty demeanor as far away from this fucking franchise as possible. And that is how they bounce back. You focus on the kids, you focus on the good vibes, good energy, good work ethic in the room. Um, you get rid of Randall. If you could bring in someone with some real gravity for Randall, even if it's not a great contract, even if you have to give up a first, like give up the Dallas first or something to get rid of Randall and bring in a guy who you're pretty confident is going to be able to fit in well with this group and is like, that's to me how the franchise bounces back. And invest in the youth and play the kids with, again, a couple of select veterans, 2-3 vets, seven young players. Let's go. Giddy up. It's pretty easy. SB Gorilla, what's going on, man? Thank you again for the contribution. You've been so generous of late and chiming in again. Damien here. Oh, Damien, I know your name now. Hi, Damien. Want to echo the sentiments of the earlier chat. It's my first year here. I'm here for the long haul. Well, you get ready. Make sure you have something good to drink. Keep up the good work. I hope we can have the young guys play a ton in the last 5 games. Yeah, I mean, no one's asked it yet, but I'll say it anyway. If you're asking me my personal wish for the last 5, I mean, love me some Alec Burks. I've warmed up on Evan Fournier. Just play the kids. Can they play only the kids? I actually don't think that's possible. Because so you got Mitch and Sims at the center spots. You could do Obi at the 4. You could run RJ at backup 4, which means basically your 3 minutes are going to be RJ, and if Grimes isn't back, you actually wouldn't be able to do this. You would have to have either Burks or Fournier. I'm fine with keeping one of them around. That's fine. Play Fournier. Play Fournier and RJ. Give Quickly a ton of minutes. Give McBride a ton of minutes. It'd be great if Grimes got back too. But yeah, roll with those guys the rest of the year. That would be awesome. Chad Cohen, thanks for a great season, John. Hope next year brings better players and redacted anywhere else. Maybe we could take his access away now. Wouldn't it be funny if Julius Randle showed up to work tomorrow and his key card didn't work? The things that give me joy. This is from Andrew. FYI, the lottery will be both a playback watch party and a live stream watch along. You'll only get to see our reactions on YouTube, not the broadcast. Yes, so look out for that. Juanon, what's going on, Juanon? Thanks for the hard work this season, fellas. It's not hard work, it's just therapy. But then again, therapy is hard work. What's your prediction on the Jazz's impending playoff implosion and how that can impact us? In my opinion, it's Rudy who is going to be dealt. Mitchell isn't leaving. So I think a couple things. And before I actually answer that, one more super chat just came in from Jay Jayan. The front office will find a new zip code for Randall. I think they will too. Okay. My thoughts on the Jazz. I don't think the Knicks are in a good position to trade for Donovan Mitchell this summer. Unless the Jazz would talk themselves into Julius Randle as a return. And obviously not just Julius Randle. It's Julius Randle and 3 first-round picks and 2 swaps. They might ask for a young player too. Not RJ, but I don't know, Quentin Grimes or Emmanuel Quickly or I want like I don't think in a million years the Jazz would accept a player the caliber of Julius Randle with like all his question marks as like the main on court return for Donovan Mitchell. So if they're not going to accept that, then what are the Knicks trading in terms of players who could play on the court now? You're going to tell me the Jazz are going to be perfectly content getting a bunch of expiring contracts and then a bunch of picks from a team that Donovan Mitchell may spend the rest of his career with and that like has RJ Barrett on it? Like, what are those picks going to be worth? I wouldn't do that if I was the Jazz. Which is why, again, I think the best time for the Knicks to be in the Donovan Mitchell sweepstakes will be a year from now. So if the Jazz do implode, do I think it would be a better idea? Am I, as a Knicks fan, rooting for them to like trade Rudy Gobert and try to reshuffle the deck? I mean, I guess probably not, because if they do that, it's going to make it more likely that maybe Mitchell stays. At the same time, like, I don't think Rudy Gobert has a lot of value. I don't think Rudy Gobert is going to net them a deal that they really love. I think you're going to have to find a desperate team. And like Zach Lowe pitched around a couple trades with Bill Simmons a few weeks ago. They talked about Atlanta. Like, you want to tell me like is Clint Capella and Bogdan Bogdanovic changing Donovan Mitchell's life? You know, like DeAndre Hunter and Clint Capella and Kevin Herter. Like, are those three guys changing the Jazz's life and making Donovan Mitchell want to stay in Utah? I don't know if I see that. So, like, to me, any way you cut it, if the Jazz implode this summer, I think it's gonna like I do think it's gonna be good. My fear is that Mitchell basically is like, I want out. Just trade me. Here's my list of like 6 teams that I'm okay going to. And here's the other part of it, right? He really can't say that yet. He has 3 more years left on his contract. I actually don't even think he can demand a trade. I don't think he will demand a trade. I think, if anything, he'll walk into their office and be like, fucking make changes. Because otherwise, I'm going to be pissed and I'm going to demand a trade a year from now. So if he does that and they're like, we should get what we could get for this guy now, which I don't think they'll do, but hear me out. Like, I think there's another trade out there, another team that could make a nice trade for him. Like the Heat can Harrow and my boy, whose name is escaping me, of course, right now. The guy who I want to pay $125 million to. Like, that's a trade, you know. The Heat don't have any picks, but I don't know. Do the Jazz want Tyler Harrow? Maybe. There's probably another trade out there I'm not thinking of. Duncan Robinson, thank you. I don't know why I blanked on Duncan Robinson. So yeah, I think the Jazz situation is going to be really interesting. I don't know. There's a part of me that hopes it doesn't get too bad, because I don't want him to be traded this offseason, because I don't think it's going to be to the Knicks. Jason M says, if Mitchell asks out, Presti will make a Godfather offer to pair SGA with Mitchell. Maybe, but then again, if you're Presti, are you confident that Donovan Mitchell is going to be there for the long haul? Because the amount of time and effort and energy that Presti has put into this rebuild and getting all these picks, I feel like he's going to use the picks for like the last piece of the puzzle once they like get the like draft for the guys who are going to be here for the long term. I don't know. I don't know if that's a Presti move. Maybe I'm misreading the situation. I'm not sure. I actually think that the more likely scenario is that we start to hear rumors, maybe not this summer, but soon, of like SGA potentially being on the block. That I wouldn't be shocked by at all. And that being his Godfather offer for like the first or second pick in this draft, or the third pick in this draft or something. That I think is more likely. Because we already heard rumors of that last year. So we'll see. Okay. I think that's it. We've managed to talk about, we've managed to put a nearly hour-long eulogy on this team that did not deserve a 5-minute eulogy. Oh wait, hold on. We got one more. One more from Matt Smith. What's going on? And a couple more coming in. Okay, I'll stay on. Matt Smith. The only way I see us being able to make a big trade this summer is if we fall in the top four and Zion demands out. To me, the more likely trade this summer is, and I say this as like 6% versus 4%, is Zion, because I don't think a team is going to trade for Zion unless they feel like it's going to be a situation where he could be like happy there. I think the Knicks would go all in for Zion. I think the Knicks would give all the picks. And I think, you know what? You know who I think actually would trade for Julius Randle? And a bunch of picks? Maybe New Orleans. The complicated situation there, as we've discussed lately, is like, what does New Orleans want with a bunch of picks? But maybe it's a three-way trade, right? Maybe the picks go somewhere else, and maybe New Orleans gets another player. I don't know. Who else wants picks? Yeah, it's tricky, but I wouldn't rule it. I think Zion has played his last game for the Pelicans. So SB Gorilla, not all kids just split time at least 24 minutes. Yeah, I mean that's fine. That's fine. Just let them get run. And then Juanon with one more. Would we have interest in Gobert? I hope not. I hope not. I really, really hope not. Oh yes, Andrew just texted me. Lottery luck. That's how we get Zion. So yeah, I guess if we got into the top four pick and Julius Randle for Zion. There's your trade. Anyway, would we have interest in Gobert? Yeah, I hope not. Like, I don't even know what that trade would look like necessarily. It would be Randle. God, what's Gobert making? Gobert's making. Actually, I have his salary right up here. Rudy Gobert is making a lot of money. He's making $37.6 million next year. So you're talking, you're talking Randle and an expiring, and a pick, two picks. Okay, you make that trade for Gobert, then you have Gobert and RJ and all the kids, right? I don't know. I'll tell you what. I've talked myself into worse. A couple more here just coming in. SB Gorilla. I would love Zion, but where does Obi fit? Still coming off the bench. I think Zion, like, here's the issue with Zion and RJ on the same team, right? Is we both know where they want to exist. They want to exist on the block. They both want to exist on the block very clearly. They are also both very smart basketball players. And RJ has shown the ability, as I wrote about this week and why it's important. RJ's shown the ability to consistently hit spot up three pointers. That matters. Zion has shown a little bit of shooting ability. And I think if you put those two on the floor with three shooters, now I think if you have RJ and Zion on the same team, it becomes so beyond necessary, beyond like you must get a stretch five or someone who could protect the rim because Zion ain't protecting shit. So yes, I guess that is a long-winded way of saying move Obi to the bench. Or maybe Obi goes. I don't know. If we get Zion Williamson, I'm not as concerned about what happens with Obi Toppin. I am concerned about getting a lot of floor spacing and a lot of elite floor spacing and also elite defenders because like something else Zion doesn't necessarily want to do is play a lot of defense. RJ still needs to show me more on defense. So like those two would have questions as a pairing. Not saying I wouldn't sign for it tomorrow. I would. But it's not without questions. Tyler Michaels asks, could the Leon Rose regime pull off a Presti-style rebuild in New York? Not in our lifetime, fella. Never going to happen. They will never, like, they tanked for 1 year and they got away with it by selling, we're getting Kevin Durant. And maybe Zion. That's what they sold. They sold that for a year. And it didn't happen. And they ain't doing that again. Unless here's how that happens. Next year goes very badly. Leon gets fired. James Dolan gives Masai Ujiri fuck what, $30 million? I don't know, whatever, a blank check. And Masai goes to James Dolan and says he puts him in the Hannibal Lecter straitjacket with the thing, and says, "You're gonna stay in there, and you're gonna let me do whatever the fuck I want for the next 5 years." And Masai then tanks. That's the only way you'll ever see it. And I don't think any of those things are happening. We got a couple other comments coming in here. Chad Cohen, I think the Jazz should trade Rudy for Bogdanovich so they could have two players with essentially the same name. He might be part of that trade. Capella and Bogey actually work salary wise, so you might get it. You might get it. I'm not holding my breath. I'm not holding my breath on that one though. Okay, I think that is it. This has been a lot of fun. This really has. I needed this one tonight. That's why I said these are. Everybody says is sitting here thanking us. It's more for us than for you guys. This is therapy. It's free therapy. And the fact that you guys actually contribute so generously makes it all the better. Gobert and Trey is a hilarious combo, Andrew. Thanks everybody for tuning in. If you're listening tomorrow, thanks for checking it out. We will have live stream Saturday, another live show with me and Jeremy Sunday night. Post games until the end of the season, the whole thing. And until next time, we will talk to you soon. Peace out.